Here that some risk assessments and vulnerability mapping exercises have been initiated in some states. Then we have to have factors, which going. It's definitely not bound to be getting used at all. But I don't see anyone will have to be built in, and we'll have to work around those. This is, the basic pyramid for with respect to prevention. So primary general prevention programs for family matrix, but there is the UN guidelines on prevention of juvenile delinquency known as the Riyadh guidelines. Then the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has a general youth crime prevention. So having said that, and I think between the JJ Act, responsibilities are clearly laid down. I don't know how many of us have actually done the exercise of breaking them down to see who is to do what. About this, I am going to come to some practices which are taken up nationally. Sir referred to children in street situations. There is a CISS application, Commission for Protection of Child Rights. The idea is to identify such children who are on the streets for a large part of their day or night. Some of them may have families, some may not. Track them and monitor and connect them to preventive sponsorship and other such programs to ensure that they are in school. Connected to the education departments have invested in tracking children who remain absent from school for more than 2 or 3 days. And those are also interesting programs in other states. With technology, it becomes easier, at least with respect to children in schools, to find out why they are not coming to school and then address it. But this is the Yuva project of Delhi Police, where they've initiated an effort to connect, to provide vocational training to youth who are identified as youth. So there is, it was being done under the PM, one of the schemes of the government, and now they've also roped in the corporate sector. So these are just innovative possibilities. The only problem is that we, as a country, feel that everyone is a counselor. All of us are fantastic, superb, we can, So there's no diagnosis of the mental health problem, and we think counseling will resolve everything. We need to invest in both diagnosis and therapy. How are we going to do that? We have to, build a task force of therapists as such. And I know in Assam there has been investment in child rights courses, for example, in the Tezpur, to pursue such courses. Similarly, for mental health, we'll have to make those kind of investments so that we can get therapists. This is a short film. I don't know if we have time, sir. With your permission, can we play this?
How long will it take?
It will take about, it will take some time. Otherwise, it could be watched on YouTube. This is to do with sports. The link is there, and it can be watched over YouTube. The reason why I wanted to show this film was because, and often when we look at the demand and the supply side, but for the supply side, we definitely look up to the law enforcement agencies to be able to deal with that, the youth. Sports has been very successful in connecting them to physical activity, taking their minds away from, the only problem was that the observation home said that we can't allow children to go out and play. And the agency that was running this program, it's actually backed and supported by actor Rahul Bose, some of you would know. They said that, if these children are doing so well and if you're not allowed to take them out, then we won't get sponsors to invest in a program like this. So we'll have to probably think of ways of, investing in these kind of programs, and also or wherever in institutional care can be given this opportunity to go out and play and represent their district, their state, their country, whatever. Because these are children often who are not really able to even pursue their education because they are inside these institutions. So that is why I wanted to show this. But the questions before us are about connected to a national prevention strategy. We can start at our local levels, but we'll have to plan out the key result areas. What are those indicators that we want to look at? What is the MIS that we want to develop? Because if you're not developing an MIS, if you're not identifying the key result areas, good things we can say in consultations and go back and then nothing really may come out. So if you could spend some time thinking on those lines, I'll end with that request. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is now time for the open house discussion, which will be followed by observations of the chair.
Yes, Mr. Kier, you.
Thank you, Justice Bujar Barua, and thank you, Bharti, for the presentation. Well, I think I'll just make a minute of observations from the presentation, because I have extensively worked across communities, and especially talked about in Fancy Bazaar are from railway line number 2 and 3. They go and stay there. We try to run a program there, but interestingly, our program with children who are
Sorry, it was demolished by the railways.
Yes, because they are all illegal settlements. Now that is the major problem in Guwahati city, which has extensive informal settlements that are not recognized. And the children, even if an NGO like ours, who have been trying to run programs, or other organizations, we share the same concern. You start to run a program, you get the children out of labor, you put them back into school, the next day their houses are demolished. So what happens? They go back into vulnerability. So it's a vicious cycle. So these are very structural, fundamental things, that you are landless. You are staying in a city because you have, flood situations, displacement, conflict in your villages. You can't afford, the rental housing in Guwahati is very steep. This entire navigation, which is what is right and your kind of, rights, children get stuck. And because of being forced, many children fall into the vicious trap of the crime. Then institutionalization, second point, is always called as the last resort. But if you look across, so it is not possible to run programs everywhere, So only children who are doing good or who are not going into recidivism is being rehabilitated are through little institutions that are running. How will you get a good counselor? It is impossible. My therapist charges 2,000 rupees per session. I am doing excellent. But for a child who's getting a counselor who is being paid 8,000 rupees, universities are not giving out excellent counseling courses. I had some teacher from one university come and interact with me. That person had no idea about therapy. That person did not herself know how to do assessment. Suffer from ADHD. For that, an MSW in counseling cannot help. But if you look at our system, many of them are MSW counseling dealing with such serious issues which they're not capable of dealing with. So these have to be. So probably if these kind of local clubs can be formed from a prevention perspective, where it can also be a hub for children to have a good time, one, because children need to have, you're biologically changing. So a huge catharsis is sports. We need that. Music, sports, theatre. But to make it accessible in the community, at the community level is something
to express on this issue.
Yeah, I'll just come in, I think.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I come from conflict zone area. Now, Community Child Protection Committee has to be established and empowered in the community as a safety net. I think this is the prevention in such activities. So now I come back at a second point. Second point is a very disturbing. The recently 13-year-old girl was raped by the juvenile. And under such circumstances, what is the corrective measure? But most of the corrective measures, what we see is that they are out from the observation home. The process has to be in this way, they should be free, go back home, without any preventive measure activities further in the community. This is where I think our intervention has to be. And I often wonder, there was no analysis on that from any of the sections. Then when the lockdown is closed and the normal life came back, children are back on the street. Children go. I think these are the areas, I think we are not able to map out our vulnerability area and able to focus the preventive measure activities in the community. I see lots of the community, no doubt. After the conflict, they are displaced. They are being living into the forest area without basic amenities. Those are the vulnerability area. We see lots of children. I think coming back to that, I think we have lots to work in the community. And I think if a state as a whole, if we could identify certain hotspot area and we start working on that, maybe the initiative has to be taken. Therefore, I think adequate investment has to be required for that. Yeah.
So to conclude the session, one of the reasons what we, as said, but what is going on in my mind that in Assam we are having free education, Mr. Mojumdar. Midday meals are served, but possibly system where possibly to a great extent by the concept of midday meal even the hunger will be taken care of.